Do you know why Jewish families, exposed to the most brutal persecution in human history, scattered across 70 different countries, stripped of everything they owned, repeatedly, over 3,000 years, still managed to produce 20% of the world's billionaires while being less than 0.2% of the global population? Forbes reports that over 35% of the 400 wealthiest Americans are Jewish. That is not a coincidence. It is not intelligence. It is not conspiracy. It is 5 specific principles encoded in the Talmud over 3 millennia ago that virtually no one outside these families has ever been taught. And today, for the first time, I am going to break down each one with the precision and the depth they deserve. My name is Rabbi Amram, and for the past 43 years, I have devoted my life to studying the ancient texts of the Talmud and Kabbalah. My grandfather was a respected Kabbalist in Jerusalem. His father before him taught these principles in a small yeshiva in Krakow, Poland, before the war. This knowledge has been guarded within my family for 7 generations. I remember sitting in my grandfather's study as a boy, surrounded by leather-bound volumes that smelled of cedar and centuries. The candlelight would flicker across the walls, casting long shadows over stacks of ancient commentaries, and he would trace the Hebrew letters with his finger as he read passages aloud. Passages about commerce, about discipline, about the sacred responsibility of building wealth that outlasts your own lifetime. What he taught me in that room shaped everything I became. What I'm about to share with you today are not motivational platitudes. These are concrete, time-tested principles that you can begin applying in your own life immediately. The 5th principle, the last one I will reveal, is the one that separates families who build wealth for a single lifetime from billionaire dynasties that last centuries. When my grandfather first explained it to me, I thought he was exaggerating. 15 years later, I realized he had actually understated its power. But each principle builds upon the one before it. So you need to stay with me through all 5, because understanding them in isolation will give you knowledge, but understanding them together will give you a complete wealth-building system. A system that has been refined across 3,000 years of trial, error, exile, and rebuilding. I first understood the true weight of these principles when I was 23 years old. I had just completed my rabbinical studies, and I was struggling in a way that felt shameful for a man with 7 years of advanced education. I had knowledge of ancient texts that filled entire libraries, but I could barely afford rent. I remember standing in a grocery store in Brooklyn, holding a box of rice in one hand and counting coins with the other, putting items back on the shelf one by one because I had calculated that I was a few dollars over what I could spend that week. A man with 7 years of advanced study, and a few dollars was the difference between eating and not eating. The woman behind me in line looked at me with pity, and I felt something break inside my chest. That was not the life I had imagined for myself. That night I sat in my small apartment with the lights dimmed because I was trying to save on the electric bill. And I opened my grandfather's journal, the one he had given me when I was 19, the same night he first sat me down and told me that the world would teach me how to earn money, but only the Torah would teach me how to keep it. I had read his journal before, but casually, the way young people read things they think they already understand. This time, I read it with desperation, and for the first time, I truly saw what he had been trying to teach me. Not just spiritual wisdom, but a complete operating system for building and sustaining generational wealth. Within 1 year of applying these 5 principles with discipline, my entire financial reality had transformed. Not through miracles or supernatural events, but through a fundamental shift in how I related to money, to people, and to opportunity. If this is already resonating with you, do something right now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a teaching. Every week I share ancient Jewish wisdom about wealth and prosperity that has been guarded for generations. Do it now so the algorithm connects us. I know what your life feels like right now. I know because I have sat across from thousands of people over 4 decades who have described it to me in almost identical words. You work hard. You probably work harder than most people you know. You wake up early, you stay late, you sacrifice things you should not have to sacrifice, and yet at the end of every month, there is barely anything left. The money comes in and the money goes out, and you cannot figure out where it all disappears to. You earn a decent income, maybe even a good income, and somehow it vanishes before the next paycheck arrives. You have tried budgets. You have tried apps that track every penny. You have tried cutting expenses, canceling subscriptions, bringing lunch from home instead of buying it. You have watched videos about investing, about side hustles, about passive income. Maybe some of it worked for a few weeks, even a month, but then life happened. An unexpected bill, a car repair, a medical expense, and you slipped right back into the same patterns. Here is what I need you to understand. The conventional approach to wealth that most of the world follows is fundamentally incomplete. It focuses entirely on earning and saving, on the mechanics of money. But it completely ignores the principles that govern how wealth actually accumulates and sustains itself across generations. It treats the symptoms without ever addressing the underlying condition, and that is why, no matter how many financial tips you follow, you keep ending up in the same place. The average American household earns a solid income year after year and still retires with almost nothing in savings. Something is fundamentally broken, and it is not how much people earn. It is what they were never taught about how wealth really works. The Talmud recognized this distinction over 2,000 years ago. In Tractate Niddah, page 70b, the rabbis recorded a conversation where students asked Rabbi Yehoshua ben Hananiah a direct question: what should a person do to become wealthy? His answer was not work harder. His answer was not save more. His answer contained principles so layered that rabbis have been unpacking them for 20 centuries, and the 5 principles I am about to teach you come directly from that tradition, from that centuries-long conversation about what truly creates lasting prosperity. If you are ready to receive this ancient wisdom, write in the comments right now these exact words: I am ready for abundance. I read every comment personally, and your declaration sets your intention in motion. Do it now before we continue. Here is the first principle: Shmirat Hamammon, the guarding of the seed. In the Talmud, Tractate Bava Metzia 42a, there is a teaching that says a person should always divide their wealth into 3 parts, 1/3 in land, 1/3 in commerce, and 1/3 kept liquid and accessible. Most people read this as basic diversification advice, but the deeper principle is far more powerful. It is about never consuming your seed capital. My grandfather explained it to me this way. He said, Amram, a farmer who eats his seed corn will have a full belly for 1 week and an empty field for a lifetime. Most people eat their seed corn every single month and then wonder why nothing ever grows. What does this look like in practice? It means that before you spend anything beyond basic survival, you set aside a portion that you will never touch, not for emergencies, not for opportunities, not for anything. This is your seed. It sits and it grows and it compounds, and you guard it the way ancient priests guarded the temple treasury, with absolute unwavering discipline. Even if it starts small, even if it seems insignificant, the amount does not matter at the beginning. The habit is what matters. The discipline is what matters. Many of the most successful Jewish billionaire families throughout history followed this principle rigorously. They lived modestly, even when they could afford extravagance, not because they were cheap, but because they understood that capital preserved is capital multiplied. Every dollar you spend is a soldier you send to die. Every dollar you invest is a soldier that fights for you and generates wealth for you forever. The families who guarded their seed, even tiny amounts, even during persecution and exile, were the families who rebuilt their fortunes fastest when conditions improved. The families who consumed everything had to start from nothing every single time. The second principle, tzedakah, strategic giving. Now this one surprises people because it seems contradictory. How can giving money away help you become a millionaire? But the Talmud, in Tractate Niddah 9a, makes one of its boldest statements: Aser te'aser, tithe, so that you may become rich. The wordplay in Hebrew is intentional and profound. The word for tithe and the word for wealth share the same root letters. The ancient rabbis were encoding a principle that many of the world's most successful billionaires have discovered independently. Some of the wealthiest people alive today credit strategic philanthropy as a cornerstone of their entire financial philosophy. My grandfather told me something when I was young that I carry with me to this day. He said, "A closed fist cannot receive. If you hold your money with a clenched hand, nothing new can enter." But here is the critical distinction that the Talmud makes, and this is where most people misunderstand this principle completely. Tzedakah is not random generosity. It is not giving your last dollar to anyone who asks. The Talmud in Tractate Bava Batra establishes a specific hierarchy of giving. Your own sustenance comes first, then your household, then your community, then the broader world. You give from strength, never from weakness. You give strategically, never impulsively, and you give consistently, not as a one-time emotional gesture, but as a disciplined, ongoing practice. Those who follow this principle consistently find that opportunities, relationships, and resources tend to flow toward them in ways that feel disproportionate to what they give. Whether you attribute this to spiritual law, to community reciprocity, or to the psychological freedom that generosity creates, the observable pattern across thousands of years is remarkably consistent. Now, before I reveal the third principle, I need you to do something. Write in the comments right now, "I guard my wealth and I give with wisdom." This declaration is not just words, it is a commitment to yourself, and I read every single one. The third principle, Shutafut, the sacred partnership. In Tractate Yevamot 63a, the Talmud states that a man without a companion is like a left hand without a right. Applied to wealth building, this principle means something very specific. Never build alone. Every major Jewish business success story across history follows this pattern. The Rothschild family built one of the greatest financial dynasties in human history by placing 5 brothers in 5 different European cities, each one supporting the others across borders. Modern venture capital was pioneered largely through Jewish partnerships who pooled resources, shared risk, and multiplied their collective power. They build in networks, in interconnected webs of mutual obligation and mutual support. My grandfather used to say that a single stick breaks easily, but a bundle of sticks is nearly unbreakable. Here is what this looks like in practice. Before you start any venture, find someone whose strengths complement your weaknesses. Share the risk, share the reward, build trust through small transactions before attempting larger ones. The Talmud even provides specific partnership guidelines in Tractate Bava Batra, how to divide profits fairly, how to handle disputes without destroying the relationship, how to dissolve a partnership honorably when it no longer serves both parties. This wisdom was developed not in theory but through centuries of real commercial experience across dozens of countries and cultures. The reason this principle creates millionaires is straightforward. A solo builder is limited by their own time, energy, knowledge, and capital. A true partnership multiplies all 4 simultaneously. 2 people who trust each other deeply, who bring different skills to the table, who share both risk and reward, will outperform 2 individuals working separately almost every single time. The fourth principle, Heshbon Hanefesh, the daily accounting. This principle comes from a tradition that Rabbi Menachem Mendel Levin of Satanau formalized in the 18th century, but its roots stretch back to the earliest Talmudic teachings about self-examination. It means accounting of the soul, and it applies to building wealth with devastating precision. Every evening you sit down and account for your entire day, every dollar that came in, every dollar that went out, every financial decision you made. Not with judgment or shame, but with radical, unflinching honesty. My grandfather kept a small leather notebook in his coat pocket every single day of his adult life. Every evening after dinner, he would sit at his desk and write in it for exactly 15 minutes. I asked him once what he was writing, and he looked at me and said, "I am having a conversation with my money. I am asking it where it went today and whether it went where I wanted it to go." Most people have no real relationship with their money. It comes and it goes and they experience it passively. like weather, like something that happens to them rather than something they direct with intention. The Heshbon Hanafesh principle transforms your relationship with wealth completely. The millionaire families I have studied over 4 decades all share this trait without exception. They know their numbers with precision. They can tell you their net worth at any given moment. They know exactly how much they spent last month, last week, yesterday. Not because they are obsessed, but because awareness is the foundation of control, and control is the foundation of financial growth. People who practice this daily accounting consistently find that wasteful spending drops dramatically within the first month alone, not because they force themselves to spend less, but because awareness itself changes behavior. When you see exactly where your wealth is leaking, something shifts inside you permanently. I want you to pause right now and write in the comments, "I am aware of every dollar starting today." Make this declaration public. It creates accountability, and it tells me you are serious about applying these ancient principles to your own financial life. Now we arrive at the fifth principle, the one my grandfather understated, the one I argued with him about when I was young and arrogant, the one that separates a single wealthy generation from a billionaire dynasty that lasts centuries, Masorah, the generational transfer. The Talmud, in Tractate Kiddushin 29a, lists the obligations a father has to his son. Among them is to teach him a trade, to teach him to swim, and critically, to prepare him for economic independence. But the deeper teaching in the broader Talmudic tradition is far more comprehensive than any single obligation. It is not just about teaching your children a profession. It is about transferring an entire operating system, a complete relationship with wealth, discipline, investment, and purpose, from one generation to the next. My grandfather did not teach me these principles in a classroom. He taught me at the Shabbat dinner table, through stories, through his own daily example, through small demonstrations of discipline that I absorbed over years without even realizing I was being taught. He would negotiate with a vendor at the market and then explain to me afterward why he negotiated the way he did. He would make a donation and then tell me why he chose that specific amount and that specific recipient. He was always teaching, always transferring, always building the next generation's financial foundation. And this is the key that most people miss entirely. Statistics consistently show that 70% of wealthy families lose their entire fortune by the second generation and 90% lose it by the third. Massive wealth, built over decades of sacrifice, evaporated in years. But certain Jewish families have maintained and grown their prosperity across 5, 6, 7 generations and beyond. The difference is Masorah. They do not just pass down money. They pass down the principles, the discipline, the habits, the mindset, and the stories that created the wealth in the first place. Money without principles is just paper waiting to be spent. Principles without money will generate wealth again and again and again, across generations, across centuries, across any circumstance. Let me share something personal with you. There was a period in my late 40s when I became so consumed with teaching these principles to others that I neglected practicing them myself. I stopped my daily heshbon. I became careless with my seed capital. I gave impulsively instead of strategically. Within 3 years, my financial situation had deteriorated noticeably, not catastrophically, but enough to humble me deeply. And it taught me the most important lesson of all: knowledge without consistent practice is worthless. These principles are not something you learn once and then transcend. They are a daily discipline, a lifelong practice, a way of being that must be maintained with the same consistency as breathing. Over 43 years, I have watched thousands of people from every background apply these 5 principles. Factory workers who built small businesses that became large businesses. Teachers who created financial security their families had never known. Immigrants who arrived with nothing and built prosperity within a single decade. In every case, the transformation followed the same pattern. They did not earn dramatically more overnight. They changed how they related to wealth entirely. They guarded their seed. They gave strategically. They built partnerships, they practiced daily accounting, and they taught their children everything they learned. That is the complete system. That is how millionaires are made, not by chance, but by ancient discipline. Let me remind you of the 5 principles. First, Shmirat Hamamon, guard your seed capital with absolute discipline and never consume it. Second, Tzedakah, give strategically and consistently from strength, never from weakness. Third, Shutafut, build in sacred partnerships and networks, never alone. Fourth, Heshbon HaNefesh, practice daily financial accounting with radical honesty. And fifth, Mesorah, transfer not just your wealth but your entire system of principles to the next generation. You now have the same framework that has sustained Jewish prosperity through exile, persecution, and rebuilding across dozens of countries over 3,000 years. This is not magic. This is discipline encoded into ancient tradition, and it is available to anyone, regardless of background, religion, or starting point, who is willing to practice it with consistency and patience. If this teaching changed something inside you today, subscribe to this channel right now and turn on notifications. Every week I share ancient Jewish wisdom about wealth, prosperity, and financial protection that has been guarded for generations. This knowledge has the power to change your entire family's financial trajectory, but only if you stay connected. Leave a comment right now telling me which of the 5 principles hit you the hardest. Write, "This principle changed my perspective," and tell me which one. I read every single comment, and your responses guide what I teach next. If you know someone who works hard but never seems to build lasting wealth, someone who deserves to hear what you just heard, share this video with them right now. You might be giving them the breakthrough they have been searching for their entire life. And hit the like button so this ancient wisdom reaches the millions of people who need it most. May you have the wisdom to guard what must be guarded and the courage to give what should be given. May your partnerships be built on trust that endures for decades. May your daily accounting be honest and your discipline unshakable. May you teach your children not just how to earn, but how to build something that lasts for generations. And may your prosperity grow steadily, year after year, rooted not in luck, but in ancient wisdom that has stood the test of 3,000 years. Shalom.